Hello, everyone. I'm Ione Butler and I'm the founder of Uplifting Content. Sorry, I've missed you for a while. I was traveling last week, but happy to be back and chatting with you today. I'm speaking to the lovely Sabrina Francis about how to get the most out of yourself and your relationships. And I'm excited because I've had a few guests on the show who are relationship or dating coaches. And I find this so fascinating because I think our human interactions and relationships are, for me, the most important part. Connection and being with other people is so important. So really excited about talking about this today. So thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. And thank you for having me. It's really, really good to be able to come and speak with you.
My pleasure. Thank you. So I'd love for you to begin by just sharing a little bit about yourself and how you got into the work that you do and just any other information that might be nice to know about you.
Yeah, cool. So I kind of started out in a whole different world as a PE teacher. So
Oh, wow.
my background was very much about helping young people and getting them to move their bodies. That's something that's been a real sort of passion for me.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the reasons why I went into that area was from the earliest sort of moment I can remember. I've always been really interested in how we humans sort of operate and work, and how do we get the best out of ourselves. So I came across a book called The Chimp Paradox. I don't know if you've come across
I love
that.
that book.
Yes.
I love that book. Oh, it's fantastic. I recommend that one. Yes.
Absolutely. So that was a real game changer for me. It really shifted my perspective in terms of, it's not, just about the body. It is really about what's going on up here. And I had the fantastic opportunity to go and work with Professor Steve Peters for a couple of years. So that is how I kind of started along this journey.
What were you doing with him? That's awesome.
Yeah, so using my education background, I was, along with his amazing team of people, I was working with head teachers, with sort of teachers and staff and students, and it was all about helping them understand what's going on in their minds and how they can get the best out of themselves and really, make a difference ultimately to the young people that they're working with, but recognizing that it starts with them. So if they are, as members of staff, in a good place, that they're then going to be able to have those better, more higher quality interactions and get the best for their students.
Because teachers' work is so important. Like, they're not paid enough for how much of an impact and how important their work is. And when you've got an inspired, passionate, excited teacher versus someone that's tired and frustrated and feels undervalued and whatever, like,
Absolutely.
that's having an impact on our future and our world. And so, yeah, investing in them and getting them in a good place is impacting hundreds, if not thousands of lives. So that's a brilliant sort of avenue to focus on.
Absolutely. But sadly, what we found was that with funding being cut in education, there was less and less opportunities for us to get out there and work with teachers and the staff. So I kind of found myself in this place where, do I go back to teaching? Do I try something else? Or do I carry on doing what I'm doing, but maybe try and find a different sort of avenue to reach out and help people?
And so that kind of brought you into this sort of coaching world.
Definitely, yeah. So came into this coaching world and very much, there's lots of opportunities, business coaching, relationship coaching, life coaching, all of this sort of stuff. But ultimately the work is exactly the same for me, whether you're working with an executive to a teenager, that the actual work that we do is the same. It's really just, how do you position yourself to reach as many people as you can? And I certainly felt in the UK there just wasn't really very much support for people in dating, in relationships, whether they're struggling with certain elements or whether actually they're in a good place, but they just really want to take it to the next level. What is actually out there for them? Oh, may have lost you there.
Oh, sorry, I know the internet is being a little bit silly. But no, I know what you mean. There seems to be in the UK, there's less of an emphasis on personal development. I think that it's, I mean, I haven't been there for so long, so I don't know what it's like now, but that was one of the reasons that I wanted to move to the States. I just found that the attitude of people, it's there isn't that need or interest in growing and an awareness. So I'm sure that that's changed over the years. And, you know, I've been speaking to fantastic people like yourselves from the UK. So there's definitely people out there doing the work. But yeah, England is an interesting place for that. We've got this weird idea that working on ourselves is somehow wrong or weird or obnoxious. I don't know. English people,
it could be whether it's seen as a little bit self-indulgent, maybe.
Right.
Or something that we should just be able to just do automatically.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that I do feel like the tables are turning a little bit and people are more open to doing this type of work and getting help and advice and support. So I think it's fabulous. So just to let everybody know, first of all, hello, everyone that's on the call, you lovely people. We've got Marion and Josh and Loz. Lovely to see you, and other people that are being shy. So feel free to say hello. Ask any questions. If you've got any relationship or personal questions for Sabrina, we'll ask those in a little bit. We've got a fantastic giveaway. Sabrina has given so many awesome things for this giveaway. The first prize is a 90-minute coaching session with her over Skype or FaceTime, which is fabulous. Second prize is a 1 hour coaching, 1 hour. And the third prize is a 30-minute coaching session. And she's also offering 10% of any of her services while we're running this promotion, which will last for a month. So FYI, that's awesome. Very excited. There's a link in the thing here that you can sign up for to enter that competition, and we'll announce 3 winners in a month's time. So do enter. You've got good chances of winning. You've got to be in it to win it. So if this is something that's of interest and you are looking for a coach, definitely get on this. What was the other thing that I was going to say? Cool. So when you start working with somebody and you are, and say, for example, it's somebody that's in sort of a bit stuck, looking for a relationship or wanting to be in a relationship, what's the type of conversations that you have? What's the type of work that you do in that early stage?
So really early on, it's recognizing that everybody is different. You know, I know there's a lot of sort of dating relationship coaches out there that give advice: do this, do that, don't do the other. And for me, my approach is very much about really understanding the person that's in front of me. So there's getting a bit of a history. What's going on for them at the moment? What are they really struggling with? What is it that they really want? And with a bit of time, we might start to explore some of the experiences that perhaps they've gone through that's shaped their thinking and their actions, the behaviours. But it's really helping to get a picture of what's going on for them, but also giving them some early insights into what's actually going on. So it's very, very much about, how a little bit of basic neuroscience, if you like. You don't have to know extensive, amygdalas and dorsolateral prefrontal cortexes and what they do, but if you've got at least a basic understanding of how the brain is wired, and you can apply this to what's going on for you, I think that really helps to get people a good start in terms of, working towards what they actually want.
And in regards to sort of the Chimp Paradox and that, I haven't read it for a minute, but can you kind of give us a little summary of how, like, when you say about how the brain works, is there like a little summary that you can give to sort of help people understand what you mean by that, and just a little bit about the book?
Yeah, sure. So what Professor Steve Peters basically outlined was that, as complicated as the human brain is, it can be kind of simplified to 3 key players in the brain. So we've got our human, which is, in our frontal area of the brain. This is us at our best, when we're operating consciously, rationally, we're thinking logically, we're thinking clearly, we've got a clear picture of what we want, and how we're going to go about getting there. So it helps us to plan and organize our actions. We've then got this little fellow in the sort of limbic area of our brain, which is, he calls the chimp. And this is basically our survival system. So we wouldn't do without this system. It's what keeps us safe. It's what keeps us alive. And back in the day when we were, avoiding bears and lions and tigers and all that sort of stuff, hugely helpful. But what we have is, we've evolved as human beings. We don't have the same threats. And what our chimp does is sometimes get the wrong end of the stick in terms of what really is a threat to us and what could potentially be an opportunity. And the third part of the brain is essentially our hard drive. It's just all of our experiences, all of our beliefs, all the things that are sort of programmed into our mind. And so the critical thing to recognize is we essentially have two thinking brains. Mm-hmm. So there's us and there's our chimp, and each of us have different agendas. So it's just recognizing those times when sometimes it's our chimp that's responding for us, because that is 5 times stronger than we are. The neural pathways in that part of the brain are fast acting because they need to be. And when we are actually being the person that we want to be. So it's really, the work is what's going on in the computer, what's going on in that hard drive. How have we picked up these beliefs that are shaping our perspectives, shaping our behaviors, and which ones do we want to hold on to because they've been, really helpful for us, and which ones we need to maybe modify a little bit, and which ones we just need to let go of because it doesn't serve us anymore.
Right. I have to read that book again. I haven't read it in such a long time, and you've got me super excited about hearing, even just hearing that. But I think it's so important that I talk a lot about just understanding the thought process and what we're thinking, because a lot of the time all this stuff is happening and people don't even have an awareness of it. So you've got this chimp part of the brain, or would you call it the ego? Because I kind of see it as that part that kind of has to defend itself and be right, and is kind of can be trouble sometimes. Understanding that is kind of fighting, and just getting your head around it. And then you've got all the beliefs and stuff like that, which sometimes you're not even aware of. They're having an impact. I can be resistant to doing something and avoiding doing something, and it's because there's a fear of someone's going to judge you, so don't post that thing, or and so unless you realize that that's going on, it's hard to break through, because you're kind of like forcing yourself, but that belief in there is always holding you back. So just understanding how we work. And so when you work with people, do you go through all of these things with them and kind of work on that? Yeah.
So quite early on in the session, usually I will start with the chimp model, because it's still, in terms of the feedback that I've had from the clients that I work with, it's still a really powerful, visual representation. If you draw it out, they can see it happening and they can apply it. And it just makes sense. That's usually the feedback that I get. And normally if things make sense, it means that we can work from it. It gives us a base. And so, we would look at, what's going on particularly for their chimp. So you mentioned ego, and that is one of the drives of the chimp, but there's all sorts of other things like, that food drive, the sex drive, which is quite self-explanatory, and, certainly in terms of our dating habits, might shape some of our behaviors. But just how inquisitive we are, how sort of nurturing and parental we are, wanting to look out for others, looking after others, our need to be social and connect with others. So there's all sorts of needs or drives that our chimp has, and they vary from person to person. So it's about exploring those and understanding what's going on for them and their chimp.
Gotcha. So moving into the dating conversation. There's so many questions that I want to ask you about this. So how do you, so there's things like meeting people. What is your, because you work with people on dating profiles and online things and stuff like that. But what is your, what is the way to meet people? I always struggle with this, because a lot of the time, as someone that's a bit of a go-getter, I am a go-getter, it annoys me that I can't just go out and get that, and it's sort of just, but then there's being open to it. So I typically say to people to just be doing the things you love, be feeling good, be doing what you love, kind of be putting out that energy, and just be out there and open to meeting people and receiving people. But sometimes it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't always work. So what's your kind of advice to people on meeting someone?
So I think there's lots of challenges around meeting people. So in the world that we live in, where we've got technology that's just at our fingertips and we can just click and swipe, and there's loads of options there, and that in itself can be helpful to an extent, and it can also be a bit of a hindrance. We've got people that we're able to just discount, comparing people like right next to each other, and that really shapes how we make our decisions. So we see this behavior in the supermarkets. We know that we're going to always go and pick the shiniest, most symmetrical looking apple, as opposed to another one that's perhaps organic, a little bit smaller, a little bit more asymmetrical, might taste absolutely amazing in comparison to the other one, but we tend to be directed by what's going on visually. And so to an extent we're almost sold this dating apps, dating sites is going to make this so much easier for us, which can sort of heighten our expectations. At the click of a button I should be able to meet my perfect match, and off we go. And the reality is it's challenging. It really changes the way that we interact. It changes whether we, how comfortable we feel in approaching people. We're mixing with people that are outside of our normal social circles, and that changes the dynamics a little bit.
It does. It's interesting. So I'm reading a book called Unnatural Happiness. It's by a spiritual, it's some kind of guru or something, whatever. But the section that I was reading last night was about, what did they call them? Maximizers, and maximizers and something else. But basically, maximizers are people that are always kind of seeking, they're always trying to get the best thing, and they're never quite fulfilled with it. So there's maximizers, and the opposite of that is something else that's the opposite. But basically, those are people that they find something and then they're content with it. They're happy with where they're at. But the problem with maximizers is that they're always then second guessing themselves. And it's like, well, I've got this, but was there something better? And did I make the best decision? And I feel like with dating and relationships and stuff like that, there's always you're always in that space of, is there something better? And I was speaking to a friend last week, and he was saying the same thing as well about just how, I think it was as a discussion about millennials. Millennials have so many options and so much choice that there's always this thing of, well, if this isn't quite right, then there is always something better. So you're never fully committing to a thing because there's always might be something better around the corner. And I think that is the challenge that we face in our modern world, when there is so much choice, and there's 100,000 of people inside an application that you can just swipe on, whereas before you would this is who you were presented with, you make the most out of what you got, basically. And so I don't know how I feel about that, whether and I keep saying sort of my expectations or want of a relationship, or what I'm looking for in a relationship, does that exist? Is there an element of just sort of being okay with like this, even though perhaps it might not be as exciting or what I had in mind for what I'd like of a relationship? Or do I just continue to be where I'm at because I'm happy with where I'm at and seek that? So I'd love to get your thoughts on that, because this is always I ponder this all the time.
So where you said I'm happy where I'm at. So, what if you were to change or do something different, what is it that you think that you might gain from that? Or what could be missing for you?
I think having a relationship, because I'm happy being single, and sometimes this changes based on my thinking around dating. So I'm glad that I'm in this place, because there's been times where I kind of get into this whole, I'm single and I want to be in a relationship, and I go down this whole thing, and 2 weeks ago I was completely fine with where I was at, and it wasn't a thing. But then I don't know, maybe I go to weddings and see a bunch of people getting married, or start to feel like, I don't know, however I feel. And so go into that pattern of thinking. But now what I mean with where I'm at is I'm just very much enjoying my life and the relationships I have. I think that a relationship element would be nice in having a companion and a partner to sort of go out and experience life with. But then what I'm kind of opening up to the realization is that there are people in my life that I can still go and have those experiences with. And though it might not be a conventional you know, boyfriend or husband that we go home every day. I'm still having those connections. And so then that's okay. Maybe it's just a bit unconventional.
Yeah.
So
I think so we've all heard that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So I think part of that is why I think understanding the mind is helpful. We almost need to understand, what is this body and mind that I've got to work with here? What's its limitations? What's going on? So there's an element of working with what we have, and recognizing that our need for relationships is a survival mechanism. You know, I don't know if you've come across the work of Dr. Helen Fisher.
No.
So she would be an interesting person to look at in terms of relationships. So from her studies, you know, she's kind of pointed out that we are pair bonding species. So part of our survival is that working together, mating, and at least staying together long enough to raise our children. And so where we, you know, in terms of long term, if that's what you want from life, you know, if you have dreams to raise your own, I mean, in this day and age, it may be slightly different. You know, perhaps the goalposts have changed. We're not necessarily needing a partner to fulfill that role, and we're not necessarily needing a partner we may feel that we don't need a partner to help to raise our young.
So and that's interesting. I feel like I'm a little bit off with that one too, because I've always wanted to adopt. So a partner isn't necessarily I don't feel the urge to be with somebody for that reason. But I know that that's a big driving force for lots of people. Here's a question for you that I'm curious about. What do you say about, like, sort of people that are very similar, or do opposites attract? What tends to be a good match in your opinion?
Yeah, so this isn't coming from my opinion. This is in terms of the research that I've done, and a lot of direction that I take from this is, again, Dr. Helen Fisher. So she used functional MRI scans. So she looked at what was going on in the brain and matched those with personality types. So what she found, I mean, personality has its...
Wait a second, did she do Personality Plus?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh no, sorry, that's like Florence Lawler or something like that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. So she looked at these personality types, which I recognize as well. Personalities can change over time, but under stress, under, you know, heightened emotions, including love, sometimes we have a tendency to go back to our default. So she came up with 4 different personality types. One she called the explorers, which were more sort of dopamine reliant systems, so much more about, well, exploring, traveling, having fun, and that sort of stuff. And she found that those 2 were a good match. So explorers would look for another explorer. She also came across builders, which were much more sort of traditional perspective, much more following the rules, structure, process, traditional family values, that kind of stuff. And again, they seem to be quite a good match for each other. That they were more around the serotonin sort of neurotransmitters and hormones. And what she called directors and negotiators, so somebody who's predominantly testosterone based, along with somebody who is more estrogen oxytocin based. Those 2 are opposites in terms of their personality, but they would be a more suitable match. So the short answer is it depends, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's the name of that book? I'm going to put that in the comments.
So Why Him, Why Her, or I can't remember if it's Why Her, Why Him. But again, Dr. Helen Fisher for that one. Lots of insightful stuff in there.
Oh, okay, cool. Excellent. So we were saying that it is difficult to meet people online or just in general, because there's lots of challenges. I've just written the name down of that book. Actually, I've written Why Hum, Why Her. My bad. I can't. Multitasking can be difficult sometimes. When you, for example, say somebody's doing a dating a profile, what do you sort of suggest makes an appealing dating profile? Because there's so many different ways to go about it, and it can be really like stressful. What do you think?
So I think there's two important things here. You know, the photos are important because that is the stuff that we see instantly, and we are making judgments. That chimp and that automatic sort of part of our mind makes these judgments in, you know, less than 3 seconds. So in terms of profile pics, I would always advise having one profile pic that is you, and, you know, you looking really, really, you know, as good as you can, that's up to date, you know, not something 4 years ago when you were sort of perhaps in better shape, but, you know, is you at your best. It's important that you have a bit of a lifestyle pic, so something that really sort of captures what your life looks like. Yeah. And
that's so much fun.
But the purpose behind that is really that the person looking can see whether they fit into that lifestyle.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
And another pick around your social circle. So what do your friends look like, or perhaps family members that you spend the most...
You know, the friend thing, I often find that if I'm looking at a profile and if I fancy the friend of the person instead, it's a little bit awkward. But that does make sense, sort of seeing who's close to you.
Yeah, and maybe something that's just a really good talking point. So if you've had an amazing holiday somewhere, you know, something that really captures something that they could, you know, really talk to you about when you get that first date.
Gotcha. So that's online. Say somebody you see someone out and about. Who do you think should make the first move, and how do you think people should approach other people? Because there's always this sort of weird barrier, and I've noticed it. I just feel like when I have the most fun when I go out, when I just am open and meet new people and just connect and talk. And sometimes I feel like I go out and everybody's very closed off. It's like you're with your group of friends and you do this, and everyone's sort of in here to themselves. So what would you advise for people meeting new people out and about?
So a lot of studies that have done around, you know, what seems to work across various different cultures is we found that women actually tend to be, this is in heterosexual couples, women tend to subtly make the first move. So there is an element of, you know, you through body language, through eye contact, you know, our body language movements are very similar. So whether it is, you know, the bit of the hair, the showing the neck, but from that point, it kind of works best if the men are able to pick up on those cues, which can be a challenge in itself. Generally speaking, guys are not quite as well wired for reading body language signals. So that can be an area of work that I might do with a guy. And then guys also like a little bit of a chase. So I think sometimes we can be a little bit too, you described you were a real sort of go-getter and I'm just going to go after what I want, which is fantastic. And some guys will at times be a little bit, you know.
I definitely get that I'm intimidating a lot. So yes, that definitely does come across. I feel like when you... my advice typically to people on approaching people is not to see it as, oh, this is a person that I'm romantically interested in and that I've got to go and get them because they're cute and attractive and whatever, I need this to work out. Absolutely. Rather than just going out and connecting with humans just for the sake of connecting. And I think for women it works if you just see it as just going and speaking to a guy and saying hi and seeing what's happening. And for men, I think it's so important to lead with just a friendly, genuine interest in getting to know someone, because I find when somebody comes up to me and is all like, hey, you know, it's just too much, and it's like, please back off, like, please just, you feel like you have to, you're being attacked a little bit. And so it's just much more enjoyable to have a conversation with a man who's sort of just lovely and considerate and is asking questions, and just having that conversation with, and then your kind of guard comes down a bit, and then you just get to know the person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think that another tip that I find is really helpful is just imagining that somebody's like already in a relationship or something like that, or they're not available. And then it kind of takes that thing of, then you're not fearful of rejection. You're not kind of putting too much on something. And it's kind of just approaching somebody, but just from a genuine, like, let's have a chat. One of my best friends, when we first met, we were working together, and the first thing he started doing was talking about his girlfriend, and they're married now, and he's such a sweetheart, and they're so lovely. But him talking about his girlfriend was like, oh, cool. I mean, he's not hitting on me. This is different if it's kind of like a relationship thing, but I noticed how it was so much easier to feel safe and like connected, because I didn't feel like I was prey.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't think any of us like to feel
important.
like prey. Yeah.
No. So I think that's why a lot of first dates can be a little bit tricky, or speed dating and those sorts of events where we're turning up with the agenda of, oh my God, this has got to go really well, and I need to, and we need to get into a relationship, and then is it going to be marriage? Is it going to be whatever? And we sort of run away, or our chimps will run away with ourselves in terms of the outcome and the long-term sort of goal, rather than just focusing on the process. And the process is having a bit of fun, just as you say, getting to know a person.
Yeah, and I met someone recently who was saying that it takes him a long time to get into, like, all of his relationships they've gotten to know each other over a period of time, and then they're in a relationship. And I think I've always decided within a few hours, yes or no. Do I see this as a person that's not even worthy? Do I see this as a person that I want to be with long term? And actually, I loved his idea of just allowing it to unfold and seeing, rather than just deciding. And I think when you go in with that idea, there's so much less pressure.
Absolutely.
I say that, and at the same time, I know that there's people that just don't have the time, right? Say somebody's in their mid-40s and they want to have kids. I feel like then it seems like it's more of a just get to it, and I don't have time. And, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so time is quite often, a lot of the sort of successful women that I work with kind of spend a lot of their time, focusing on the career, focusing on the job, and sometimes can struggle to prioritize that time for relationships. And sometimes come to a point where, oh my goodness, biological clock is ticking. I need to just get out there and start making babies, and all that sort of stuff, which is incredibly tough. It's really hard. My best advice really is to really think about where your energy is going, and where does that come from. So sometimes a lot of our drive to focus on that career, focus on working hard, and we put all of our self-worth basically into our jobs, and it doesn't necessarily. Sometimes we've got what success looks like out of balance. We think it's all about the career and the holidays and the big house and the cars and the money, and really success is a wider picture, and it's really working out what success is to you, because some people quite happy to carry on doing their thing, enjoying their life, and not be in a relationship, and that's absolutely fine. But if there is a little seed of, I think that this is really what I want, try and make that time, really commit, really schedule that time.
Gotcha. So, our time is nearly up. Just wanted to, I know, right? When you're just so chatting quick. Flies when you're having fun. Hello, everybody that's on the call. We got Mary as well. I can't pronounce this name, but it's cool. Says, so how in the world can we men read those gestures of a woman to get close or approach her at the first day? So I think that was back to you sort of saying about the hair flicks and things like that. You said that you work with men. What would you say to Saga?
So I would just say, just start noticing. So without any kind of agenda of, I'm looking to meet somebody, just park yourself in a bar or a coffee shop and just watch people and just see what their movements are. Just really start to, pick up on the cues that they're giving off subconsciously. Try not to make yourself quite, too obvious that you're staring, but
don't be a creeper.
But just start to practice that skill. All of this stuff, in terms of how we build relationships, is all skills based. Anybody can learn to do it. It's just, taking that first step in really just observing what's going on for you, observing what's going on with others. And the more that you become aware, the more likely you'll then be able to, use this for yourself. So you'll be able to pick up on those cues more naturally.
So are you saying observe other people having the interactions, or observe people having the interactions with yourself?
I would say observe others at first.
Yeah.
Take the pressure off yourself.
Yeah.
Just have a look and see what's going on. We spend so much time these days with our heads in laptops and smartphones.
Yeah.
And there's so much information that we're missing out on that, we are actually, naturally wired to pick up on. But it's getting tougher. It's getting tougher to learn those skills. We've just got other distractions.
I would say also to Sega, I believe that's how you pronounce it. If somebody's looking at you and smiling, I would remember being in bars in the UK and just sort of smiling at guys and then them not doing anything. And so if somebody's constantly making eye contact or coming back to making eye contact with you and smiling, and then that's a sign to go and say hello. And so, I think it's great advice from Sabrina to observe. And you can, actually, I'm thinking about this, you can see people flirting and talking and joking. You can see that happening when you're in bars, if you sort of just take, or coffee shops, or just take that time to kind of have a look and see what is being done. But typically if someone's looking and smiling, that's a sign that they're interested, and going even. And I think for some guys, the fear of rejection. And so what I always say is, if you're just approaching somebody, like I said before, without that intention of, I'm going to hit on this chick and get this woman. If you're just approaching someone with, let me go and say hello to a lovely person and get to know them and see what happens, and just say, hey, how's your evening? How's things? How's your weekend? Whatever. Just doesn't have to be a cheesy thing, just opening a conversation. And then for the whole rejection thing, if somebody does reply in a really douchey way, and I've seen such, horrible, bitchy women sometimes, which really upsets me, and some douchey guys too, take that as a sign that that's not the type of person that you want in your life anyway. So, when you're worried about being rejected in that way, just kind of remember that. I'm going to go and be open and connect with a lovely person to get to know them, not because I'm trying to get them. And if they respond in a, whatever type of way, that's fine. And if they're just busy or they're in a relationship, well, that's okay too, if they just say no. So I think just getting comfortable with connecting with other humans is always good.
Absolutely. And I think there's one thing that I want to pick up on, which might be helpful for the guys out there, is just to be careful with how you compliment. So quite often guys may compliment a lady on how she looks, and really, my best advice would be to compliment on the things that she can control. We can't control our genetics, but we might be able to control a nice pair of shoes or a lovely handbag. I guess the guys might not pick up on those things, but something that is,
And maybe even something about if, when you're having a conversation, or, I think I love what you're saying there, because like, you're so beautiful from a stranger is like a little bit creepy and weird, but I love your passion, or you're inspiring, or something like that is way more meaningful than a visual thing. So great point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I had another question here from a name that I'm so sorry with these names. How about when you're giving your all and the lady thinks you're doing it for something and it's draining energy out of you, yet it's hard to walk away? What can you do, please? That's an interesting one, because I'm curious to know a bit more about the details of the situation. Is this someone that you're in a relationship with, or is this somebody that you're not in a relationship with that you would like to be? Because maybe that's what they think is you're doing it for something. But if say, for example, this person is in a relationship with this person and they're giving their all and the lady thinks they're doing it for something, what would you advise? This is a tough one.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit as though it might be you're approaching a person. I don't know. I might.
Yeah. So I know I can't pronounce your lovely name. I'm so sorry. But if you could give us a bit more details, we're going to be wrapping up this conversation. So if you can message us quickly, is this someone that you're dating currently? Is it someone you want to date? Because it's hard to answer when we don't quite know the context of the situation. So we'll give them a couple of seconds. But Sabrina, tell us about about Mindset Match and where people can find out more information about you.
Yes, so you can go to our website, which is mindsetmatch.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So just do a little search and you'll be able to find us. And we are there to help anyone, get the best out of themselves in their relationships. So whatever stage you're at, whether you're single looking for a relationship, whether you are, about to get married and you want to know how to deal with the wed stress, whether you're in a relationship and you just want things to, you would like to really work on that to really take it to the next level. There's so much that we can do. So yeah, just get in touch.
Beautiful. And for anyone that does have these questions, here we go. For anyone that does have these questions, we're giving away three fantastic prizes here, a 90-minute coaching call, a 1 hour, and a 30-minute with Sabrina. So for those of you that have questions, definitely enter that contest, and it'd be great. You can discuss it with her in person. So he says, yes, we have been in a relationship for over 2 years. It's a distant relationship and we have met a couple of times. Oh, I don't know that kind of is just as confusing. Because it seems like if you're in I'm not sure what the lady thinks you're doing, the thing that you're doing it for then, because if you're not in the relationship, if you are in a relationship, what does she think you're doing things for? I also think if it's draining of energy, if you are not together and this is causing you kind of stress, what are you in the relationship for? One thing that I often talk about is we create a story in our mind. It's not actually the relationship that we want. It's an idea of what the relationship could be that we want. So it sounds like this situation probably isn't the ideal relationship for you. Somebody that's giving you a hard time for trying and making an effort, someone that you don't see very much and that is distant. That doesn't sound like the ideal relationship, but it sounds like what you're hanging on to is the idea of what it could be if everything was working. So I would just say, again, it's difficult for us to kind of go into that, but have a look at the overall relationship. Is this a person that you want to be with, somebody that you're giving and working and trying for, who's kind of not appreciating it and has a problem with your kind of kindness? And what is it about this person that is hard to walk away from when that's what you're being presented with? So yeah, lots of things to think about there, but excellent. Well, Sabrina, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for talking to me and everyone, offering the fantastic prizes as well.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been fantastic to talk to you.
My pleasure. I love these types of conversations. We'll put all the details for the giveaway are in the comments, and we'll have all of Sabrina's information in there too, so you can check her out. But yes, everyone, until next week, I will see you soon. Bye. Bye. Bye.